Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest in our series of talks from the contemporary group of the Royal Photographic Society. This evening, I'm delighted to welcome Carol Olerud FRPS, one of our newest fellows. Well, not the absolute newest, as there was another group came through yesterday. But Carol is going to tell us about her photographic journey and particularly about her fellowship tonight. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Carol.
I would like to tell my journey story of the lead up to the fellowship. I've got a little text in this first slide, which I just thought I'd read to get us into what I'm going to be showing you. I was born in Australia from Dutch parents, and I moved to the Netherlands thinking I would stay only for 5 years. But then I actually married a Swedish man, didn't go back to Australia. We had 3 children. We lived in various places, and I've now been in the Netherlands for the last 28 years. Photography has been my passion for as long as I remember. My first camera I got in 1974, and then there was no stopping me. Though they taught me to only wind on the film before I took my next photo and keep my back to the sun. So I was very cautious about taking my photos. I only joined my first photo club in 1997 after my youngest child was born, and then the hobby grew out of hand. I followed courses, mentorships, workshops. I participated in competitions. I was part of exhibitions, and I joined many groups. And I made books, went on trips, and got to photograph some amazing things. The RPS was introduced to me in 2016, and I soon became a member a year later. The challenge of putting panels together the RPS way was new to me and something I wanted to try. I went straight for my associateship in 2018 and was delighted to succeed first go. I then decided I would like to work towards a fellowship, but I had no idea of what. I'd like to show some photos I've taken over the many years, and learning to break all the rules is just as important as following them. You know, if you know the rules, you know you can break them. I believe in an experienced photographer now in the full sense, and I appreciate everything to do with it. So please enjoy the following photos. This first set was the start actually of the journey. I joined the photo club and we got a mentor, and I was very enthusiastic about how he talked and showed us things. For the Dutchies listening, Gijs van Gent, we know him, he's passed away last year. But he encouraged me to use a wide angle. And as soon as I got a wide angle lens, I just thought, wow, this is the way I want to go. And this is the first series of 5 that won me a position in a local competition. And it really set me on my way. These are still analog pictures. So it's a photo taken of the mounted picture with 20 by 30 glossy print, developed at a local store. So I had no control really over the appearance. But I still love these pictures. When I dug them out again, I thought, the kids were small, and it was such a fun day. And then I got a recognition with the series. So I was quite pleased about that. In 2006, I went digital. I'd had small compacts before that, and I was finally ready to get it into a DSLR. I was in Australia with my sisters. We were at Stradbroke Island, which is off the coast of Brisbane, and we wanted to go to the beach on our last day there, one of the last days. And we were quite devastated to find out the beach was closed. And I always take pictures all the time of anything around me. And It just, when I saw these photos later, I thought they came together quite nicely because of the colouring and a small story that I told. And these actually got to hang in with a group exhibition in the Rotterdam Photo Museum. So that was quite a good place to start with, hanging your photos in an exhibition. And it was also hung up in a group, so I thought that was quite nice. So 2 at the top, 1 in the middle, and 2 at the bottom. So it was a nice little compact sort of appearance. And here the text is quite important because it explains why the beach is closed. And in Australia, you have these beach reports all along the coastline where you have the lifesavers with their flags. So this spot was really not safe to swim. I have Swedish family. My mother-in-law passed away in 2007, and in 2008 we buried her. That's Swedish. It's complicated, but this series I could just observe my father-in-law with his grief and the family around him in the family home. And I can just quietly photograph. No, everyone's used to my camera, and I always have it, and I just captured these moments. And I'm proud to say this was published in a photo magazine. So that was also a nice feather in my cap. And here he's just pondering life with his small glass of, maybe it was sherry, at the end of the day, and all the kids and grandkids, life carries on around him and continues. In December of 2009, we were in Sweden again, and he was moved into an old people's home. And this is how he lived there, in a room with his own furniture and things on the wall and table, and to try and make it homely with his own possessions. And it was around Christmas time, and I named it Last Christmas because it was the last time we saw him, and it was also the Christmas time. He was actually found a month later in this position, passed away peacefully in his sleep. So it was quite haunting to have taken these pictures, but I'm very glad I did. Moving on to something more cheerful, I was asked to photograph a birth. I'd never witnessed a birth before. I'd given birth 3 times myself, and I have to say it was one of the most amazing and exciting experiences to watch a baby be born. All the emotions and all the steps and the joy, and it was just fantastic. I'd gone black and white for obvious reasons, but the walls were purple. So they made for a very powerful colour as well. And I love this photo. The midwife held up the baby as it would have been laying in the womb. So that's quite unique that they can just fold the baby back up into position. I photographed weddings. One of the early ones was also happened to be in Sweden, because you get asked by your relatives. The man getting married is my nephew. And when I looked at these again, I'm thinking, you know, they're quite nice. If I see something funny that I could use, you know, why not? Why not use it? It's funny in a wedding to suggest some other part of the story. And these are little family children who were the sort of the bride and flower girl, I suppose. They're just little attendants, and they were fun to watch. And a Swedish wedding is quite traditional. It's in a church, but it's not really heavily religious. And being the main photographer, you could walk around the place and capture shots from interesting angles. So I was quite happy to capture a legal kiss in front of the crowd of family and friends. So again, I'm telling a small story of the day, and they were quite happy with my end result. I also photograph documentary type of work. So this is in the back streets of Valencia in Spain in winter. And it was just incredible to see a street or two away from the busy beach boulevard, just the state of the town, the graffiti, and I was just charmed by the warm light and the colours, and put a small set of pictures together. In the right, you can see the beach. So it's just that close behind the boulevard where, you know, you have a whole other story. So it's this small story. Street photography is something else I'm happy to do. I was in Canterbury thinking visit the cathedral, and then you come across a whole graduation day. So unbeknown to me, this was happening, and we could go into the cathedral, but it was a bit tricky because they were doing ceremonial certificate handing out. But I thought this is a perfect opportunity to just what you've come across, you know, capture life as it unfolds in front of you. I mean, she's holding her shoes. She was barefoot, but it's just was quite fun the way everything took place on the streets. And this one has won me a few prizes. The man leaning on the car with his belly and yawning, and then the contrast with the young academic couple and, you know, people on the street. I like to capture the decisive moment if I can, or something's clearly happening, and close by with my wide angle. I'm a cheeky photographer. I take shots from the hip. I know my camera well enough to make sure it's accurate. And then you can get away with a lot. I never ask, I just do. So my associate panel I worked on for 2 years. The Benelux study group assisted me. I had the pictures before I had the statement of intent. It's not really the way you meant to do it, but I could fiddle around and put it together. So for the genre, then it was still conceptual and contemporary. I'd seen other people had used quotes, and I'm a big fan of Haruki Murakami and his books. So I searched to find a quote to see if it would fit my panel. So that is what I did. I'll read it. Silence, I discover, is something you can actually hear. Haruki Murakami. As I walked inside this old, empty, sterile jail, I felt the silence. My intention was to try and capture this feeling which overcame me. I have never been inside a jail before, so I had no idea of what to expect. The silence was eerie. It would be depressing to be locked up with bars on your windows, confined and surrounded by darkness, with limited or no access to life outside, always alone in your cell, being watched over and never feeling free, searching for the light, missing the freedom you had, quietness and loneliness surrounding you. I left glad not to have had to stay for long. I had 120 words. This is my panel. It's an old jail in Utrecht. It's quite a spectacular jail. It's kept in perfect condition. It's used for other things. So it's not graffitied or destroyed. And the public can only go in a few times per year. So really, I had my 50mm lens for a change. And I just walked around and took many, many photos. And came back and thought the square format was quite pleasant, and then, you know, play around, put a panel together. And I'm sure the people at the Benelux Chapter study group got extremely tired of me because I kept bringing them in and kept shuffling the sequencing and was worried about techniques and depth of field and focus and whatnot, until finally you just send it in as prints. I couldn't be in England to hear the results, so you wait for an email, and you become an associate of the RPS. I skipped the licentiate altogether because I thought that was way too difficult. Licentiate, you need 10 individual photos showing your technical ability, and I'd kind of moved on from there, so I would have had to go back and really try and make individual photos to make a panel of 10. And I was quite happy already making series, so I was just optimistic to go for associate. So meanwhile, I'm still taking lots of photos and starting to think about, will I work for a fellowship panel with many more photos needed? We all know the last 2 years have come upon us unexpectedly. And the first time I was exposed to the face mask phenomena was actually going into Belgium in the summer of 2020, because the Dutch hadn't mandated it except for public transport. So I photographed what I saw on the streets, thinking how crazy it was. And also we were in Germany, so I have a few of those. This is a combination of Germany and Belgium. Street photos, just of this madness. And well, we know it lasted 2 years and we're still not out of it. And this picture, you know, it's quite a pretty picture, but all these face masks on a boat outdoors, to me, was just completely crazy. But of course, it's the only way you can get all the people on the boat because of the distancing. But even walking around outdoors, this is Belgium, you didn't have to wear the face mask. So I was still thinking it's just really strange. So a young couple as well, because the people behind them aren't wearing masks. This is in Germany, Gengenbach. You know, dogs in a stroller, face mask on a wrist or on the face, when you didn't need to wear it outside. So it's just something. I'm glad I've documented it, because hopefully it'll be a big thing of the past. This is a market in Belgium, and people, well, we know they could choose interesting designs so long as they wore a mask. This is more of a humorous capture. It just happened in front of my eyes. The lady grabbing her partner's backside, but they're still wearing face masks, so I can include it in the series, even though it has a sub-theme. Well, here's time for questions, because the next part of the talk will be about my fellowship panel. So I don't know if there are any questions, otherwise I can move straight on.
Yeah, we have had one, Carol.
Okay.
Clive Watkins said, I really enjoy your wide-angle perspective, Carol. What focal lengths do you usually use?
I have full frame. I have a Canon 5D Mark IV, so it's a 16 to 35 millimeter, and mostly I'm way down at 16. The very first pictures were, what do you call it, a set lens. It was 20 millimeters when I was still analog. And that was a big eye-opener for me to just learn to use the wide angle. It's my favorite lens.
Okay, he says, Clive Watkins says, thank you very much.
Okay. very good. Yes, because let me see, what lens was I using for this series? I think I used a mixture of lenses. It's a while ago. So my fellowship, I started in 2019 when I opened my archive, thinking I need to do something with these photos. It's sort of now or never. I'd taken 560. I did very many versions of the panel layouts, which you will soon see. Colour, black and white, desaturate. I showed my panel at study group sessions with the Benelux. Already, again, you know, tire everybody out, but just by showing your work and talking about it helps you to figure it out, what are good pictures. I'm a member of the peer-to-peer fellowship unofficial support group, which Alexandra runs. That has been of great value. I showed my panel there several times as well in 2020 and 2021. I took the advice one-to-one that you can sign up for with Richard Brayshaw. He was invaluable to just guide the fine-tune the finer points for the panel, because you want to be sure before you submit to the actual assessment. I'm a member of the Dutch Photo Bond, and I also tried with this work for their highest distinction. They only have one. It's called the Bondsmeesterklasse. So you're a masterclass photographer. You can be accepted for a candidate for a period of 2 years. This body of work has got me candidate twice. I was disappointed, but I learnt from it. I'll show you those panels. Anyway, then you finally get to your panel of 20 and you know that you pretty much are going to not change it anymore. It's this or nothing. You get a feeling and then you know that has to be it. I printed my own pictures on archival matte paper. I did have my mounts cut professionally. My pictures are quite small. They're only 18 centimetres wide. And the mount, I think, was 30 by 40. So I had 10 centimetres approximately around the outside because I wanted to keep it more intimate type of presentation because of the subject matter. I booked a courier. Good that I did it plenty of time in advance because the customs held on to the box because they needed all kind of paperwork, which took some time to just get them to acknowledge they'd received it. Actually, an invoice stating that they had no value. I had to actually give it a value of like 10 cents or something because they wouldn't accept a zero value. So money is spent. Then you have your assessment date nerves, which of course you book. Then you have the bubbles and the tears of joy. And then publishing success in the Contemporary Journal and the Benelux Chapter, e-journal and online, and I put it into my own website as well, and give presentations. So I will start with the statement of intent because otherwise, looking at the panels, you won't really know what I'm trying to say. So 18 days, a time of great sadness. Talking about death is still very much a taboo. It's emotional, and if you haven't been touched by the loss of someone close to you, it's quite possibly frightening. My intention with this panel surrounding the 18 days my father fought for his life in the intensive care unit at the hospital is to try and break open a conversation to remove the fear and get the idea out there that death is part of life, the great circle of life. Watching someone very dear to you struggle to live, get all the medical assistance available to him, and then realise he is losing the battle is extremely difficult. I brought my camera in at every visit. We were limited to the amount of family members that were permitted to go in at a time, so we took it in turns. My sisters and I got very good at reading the instruments, measuring his vital signs. There were many tubes with medicine and food being pushed into his body to help him. It was awful. Having these photos helps me deal with my grief and put some perspective on it. It is now many years ago. Gradually, I have accepted that he is no longer with us. It has taken me some time to get this far, that I can share this body of work. I really feel it is important, especially in the times we've been in. Many families could not visit their loved ones and could not say their farewells. I can't imagine how hard that was. Maybe I can help others by sharing my own pain and sadness and get that conversation going. Death is peaceful in the end, a part of life, the end of life. I had 299 words. 300 is the maximum. My statement was fine-tuned and pretty much stayed the same quite early on from the beginning. So that was good. The very first time I tried to put a panel together, I even tried to have square pictures to try and make a layout fit, because I thought that was quite important, the sort of overall end image. But I then learnt that that actually isn't as important as the actual photos themselves. I sent them in for a series of 5 competition, and I didn't win anything. I was quite close to the top. Can't really remember where I landed. I think there were some critiques on the last photo. Oh well. The colours are still very bright and full on. They stayed that way for quite a while. This is the panel I sent in for the Dutch BMK, and I got then the candidate. You need 12 photos minimum. And I struggled actually to get these 12 together because I wanted to have a respectful distance and keep a little bit of anonymity to all the people who were part of this. And it's hard to find the right photos that tell your story. So then I had to build it up to 20 or 21. And some of these pictures actually are not photographically good. There are technical problems in some of them. But you sort of realise as you go along making the panel what works and what doesn't work. I'm still trying to keep no other people in there. In sort of, you don't recognise any of the other family members, and also not clearly what my father's face, what he looks like. I tried black and white. I knew immediately that was absolutely no go. It would have to be much softer treatment, and you lose the warm yellow of the hospital, and I'm a colour photographer anyway, so I sort of quickly changed my mind. After, I did try, so every new panel would be a couple of months because I would bring it to a group and have discussion and feedback, and we'd go back home and think about it. I thought that my panel may be a documentary panel because I'm describing a story of the last 18 days of life in a hospital. I had a one-to-one, but they weren't enthusiastic And so I felt quite quickly, I'll stop right there and do a recap and go back to contemporary, because it was more about something. It was about my feelings and about talking about death, and not just a type of reportage of his time in the hospital. I'm still keeping family members out of the pictures, which limited me quite a lot. And what I took away from the documentary one-to-one was get more pictures. Have you got pictures of nursing staff, family members, because you need a bit more variety. He was just lying in a bed in a hospital. So you don't have a lot of options of what you can photograph. I also want it to be in a chronological order, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So it's pretty much a chronological order. I then desaturated my photos, the colours, also to pull them together because of the awful light, and between daylight and nighttime, you know, you had such a range of light tones. So I had a tip to just desaturate a lot and bring the yellows closer together. And I'm still playing with sequencing which pictures to take. I brought in more shocking images. I'm showing his face. I'm showing more family members. So I'm really searching for the right images to tell the story, and to have all the images fairly strong. Because, for example, in the second row, the second photo, I thought could balance the middle photo and the top, but it's not really about anything. It's just some tubes and light. So, you know, out it went. And the last picture, should I show the part of his farewell, or, you know, don't put it in? Where do you end your story? There's still weaker photos in this panel. Like in the top row, photo number 5 is actually very weak with the sharpness and noise. I had a lot of those type of problems. And I'm still trying to keep a panel together, like as a triangle, with the dark one at the top and the 2 darker ones in the bottom row, but it wasn't working. And so I just kept changing pictures. This is the panel I put in for the following year's BMK assessment. I had 18 pictures, which was, in hindsight, not smart. I got candidate again, basically because I was repeating myself. So some of these pictures are telling the same thing repeatedly. So I learned actually a lot just by failing, because, well, professional were looking at this, as in museum directors, photographers, that sort of thing, photography teachers, and they're not emotionally involved the way I am. And, you know, they'll say, well, you know, you are repeating yourself. There are a lot of hands in this picture. Arms. So sometimes I'm not giving enough new information. And that was really the challenge, to find new pieces of information in every photo. Like every photo was a new chapter. So I actually went back through the entire archive to find which pictures I could pull back in. And one of my favourite pictures is actually number 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, with the little girl. She's actually the only person who makes eye contact with me. Because we brought in our children to say goodbye to their grandfather. We explained everything, and we let them say goodbye in their own way, what they could understand. Of course, in the beginning, we didn't think he would die. So I was also taking pictures to show him for when he came out of it. Anyway, this actually is the final panel. So there was a lot of backwards and forwards. I decided I would present in 2 rows of 10. So I'm not bothered about the left and rights and centerpiece and that type of story. So it just reads, top to bottom, left to right. This is a sneaky screenshot taken in the Zoom on the assessment day. All the panel members, the assessors, were also on their Zoom, and we just had the print specialist at RPS House answering their questions and telling them what he saw. So that's how the 20 photos were all lined up. Quite nerve-wracking. And this is now the actual panel. So I'll just go through them while we look. So it was a successful submission. I was very happy. My sister sat next to me. We cried and laughed together and opened the bubbles. But this is how I like to remember him.
Well, thank you, Carol. Doesn't look like we've got too many more, but I've got some. First of all, just a little comment. I'm very touched at how you've shared this story with us all. And I think I say this when I remember my own father's death. It's what you remember the good times for when it's all over that matters most, isn't it?
Yeah.
The last picture of your dad there was wonderful. How difficult was it going back and revisiting all your archive? You said you took 590 photographs, and some of them must have been distressing to look at apart from anything else, but how difficult did you find this process of refining the panel so that you came up with what you finally selected?
Yeah, it had taken me years, literally, of not looking at them. until there was a moment when I pulled them out again. I was actually mad at my father. It sounds funny, but I think that's also part of your grieving process. And so I just felt another emotion when I opened them up. And I always thought, can I make this into a panel? I was hoping for the BMK, the Dutch distinction. And so I thought, yeah, it's time. And so looking through the pictures, I really also didn't want to show any people. So it was quite difficult in my first selection to protect people, but still show, to show how it was. I didn't have a problem talking about it. My family and I, we've experienced quite some grief over the years. My mother had died before that. After my father died, my brother-in-law had passed away at a young age. So we were quite familiar with losing a dear family member. And I felt my photos had something to say. So I just went through it. I mean, I cried many, many times. You know, sometimes I really thought, oh God, you know, don't do this. But I was compelled to continue.
Great. Well, thank you. Have we any more questions from anybody?
We've got comments. Sorry, we've got comments in saying, such a moving panel. Congratulations on your success. A lovely picture of your dad at the end. I've got a question, if I may, Carol. Yep. It was very, you can see all the emotion in the photos. How did you cope when the professionals you mentioned didn't see the things you saw?
Yeah, I understood it because I was sharing the panel and the photos. I knew I was ready, you know, that I could sort of be less emotional about it. So I wasn't arguing with them and saying, but can't you see? So that was a good part of the process, because I had to be distanced. I could, you know, when I prepared the prints, I fine-tuned every corner, was checking for noise. So I was so familiar with the photos that I could listen to what was said to me by the professionals. And they, of course, had empathetic remarks. So it wasn't as though they cracked me down and said really terrible things. And I've had people in the photo bond talk to me as well and just say that they disagreed with the judge's choice. So that's also, well, good, you know, when you have that sort of support. And I mean, I want to talk about dying or death. So I did want to share.
Okay. All right. Clive has asked again. Sorry, not asked again. We have another question from Clive. Did you find choosing the photos without any people in them quite difficult?
Not at first. Not at first. Because I thought I can, like, even protect my father's identity as much as possible. Though I needed to give more information. So I had to go back into the archive to find pictures that said something or something was happening.
Here's a question for you, Carol. Did you find working for the F has made you a better photographer? And if you could take one thing to give to people just starting the journey, what would you say?
very sure of the photos and what you want to share or show, you have to back yourself. So don't have any doubts. You know, you need to feel passionate about your work and believe it's worth showing. But have an idea of what it is you want to tell. Because fellowship, in the criteria, you know, a distinctive body of work, you can ask yourself, well, is this a distinctive body of work? But that's why you then go and get advice, because you people will tell you if it's not. Is that an answer to the question?
Yes, it is. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. No more questions?
No, I don't think we've got any more.
No, there's nothing.
Sharing, please, Carol.
Okay, I will move on to the end. Stop share.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, we've just got one last question come in. If you've got time, Carol.
Yes.
Yeah. Holly has asked, have you any plans for the future?
Well, I'm just carrying on. I just take photos of everything. I still aim to get my BMK. That is a challenge as ever it was. The Dutch don't have a set criteria list the way the RPS do, so it's a bit more subjective, and that's complicated. I'm actually working with a mentor at the moment, a Dutch mentor, and I'm working on a series about night photography. But it's not just night photography, something spooky has to be going on. So you get a creepy feeling. So I've taken maybe the first half of my photos and in the autumn, because the atmosphere has to be the same. The deadline is February next year. So towards the end of this year, I hope I can put a panel of 12 together that will tell the story. We'll see. But that's the challenge waiting for me, is to get the Dutch distinction. I've been wanting that for maybe 20 years. I have put in very many panels. I've been candidate 4 times, and I seem to miss out just by this much.
Oh, well, we wish you every success, and we're probably all of us really interested to see your spooky panel.
Yeah, I might bring it to the peer-to-peer group.
That would be fantastic. Really fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to share this and just say thank you so much, Carol. Not just for the fellowship panel, but your whole photographic journey. It is funny how some of us get cameras at a fairly early stage in our lives. I think I was 17 before I was finally given one to keep. And I've never been without one since, much to my wife's frustration at times, I think. But it's been a wonderful evening. Thank you for that. Thank you to Sean Goodhart, who helped us at the start, and for Alexandra Prescott, who has been co-hosting and capturing questions. So thank you very much. The next talk in our series will be Monday the 16th of May, and it's in conversation with John Ferguson. John is the first Afro-Caribbean Fleet Street staff photographer, and I think probably still he thinks the only one. So it will be an interesting evening on the 16th of May. Please sign up. It's available now. But thank you very much, Carol. I will endeavour to get the recording of this up within the next week to 10 days. So thank you, everybody, and I shall finish it off there and say thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Carol. Thank you.